All right, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully everyone is doing well. We're going to get started here in just a second. I usually do give just a couple minutes. Plus, I need to shine the camera real nice, try to help as much as I can with the picture. So yeah, we'll get started here in just a second. Want to be respectful of everybody's time, but also want to give those that maybe finish up dinner and a couple other items there. So we'll wait just a minute or so, and then we'll get started. While we're waiting, you can talk amongst yourself, talk about how much you appreciate that our colors are purple and gold, and that those are real easy to match with a lot of clothes. I'm sure that you feel that way. Holy Spirit's here if the lights are shutting on and off, so we're in good shape. I know what'll make everybody feel better. Looking at my granddaughter. I mean, come on. How can you be mad at life when you got a face that looks at you like that? I mean, come on. All right, let's get started here. I'll start us in a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for many blessings you've given us, Lord. Thank you for the opportunity to be here within your kingdom at Dayton Christian so that we may spread the gospel through ministering for Christ, but also to prepare ministers for Christ. We want to partner with our families, Lord Jesus, and this opportunity tonight is just to speak about all the great things going on here at Dayton Christian, maybe answer some questions if time allows, Lord Jesus. And we know that we want to stay in your perfect will. So give us the words to say. Give us the guidance in what we speak about, Lord Jesus, and we'll praise you in everything we do. Amen and amen. So I'm going to do a whole lot of talking. Hopefully you can stay with me. I will probably be able to give some time at the end for a little question and answers, but we'll kind of see how that goes. And I'll give you a number. It's also in the description of this video. Also in the description of this video are multiple links. Some of the things I'll reference, some of the things we'll talk about specifically. There's some videos on there. We'll talk about those when we get to the SGO and some other things. And just kind of a general disclaimer. This is for me to try to help share as much information as possible. I won't be able to fit it all in the time allotted. So if you have some questions that are specific to just overall vision, conversations about the direction of the school, feel free to reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to sit down with and get hold of, although my schedule is a little busy at times. I try to make time for conversations, especially if we're talking about our future here. So hopefully some of those answers come tonight. If not, then reach out and let's see if I can either direct you to the right person to have a conversation with, or maybe that person is me. So coming off right off the bat, well, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff. I'll stay on this share probably a majority of the time. So let's go here and let's get after it. So 5-year plan for academic excellence. That's where I'd like to start. This is something that we put into effect a couple of years ago, and I just want to let you know we're absolutely on pace, right where we need to be with it. But I want to just revisit it to make sure those that aren't familiar with it, maybe new to the school, didn't get to see the conversation that we had last year. They can kind of catch up on those things, and then we'll add a little conversation new to the latter two parts. So when I got here, we need to just make sure we're teaching the standards, setting the standards, making sure everybody is learning what they're supposed to learn. We did that through creating what are called battle plans. So if you go into your child's classroom, maybe you're here on a particular night where you're visiting, having a teacher conference, maybe you're just here volunteering time in one of the classrooms, you'll see on the wall a battle plan. That battle plan will tell you what are the promotable skill sets that your child needs to have to complete either that individual class or the grade level that they're in. We like to use those as markers, just standards that we meet and make sure that your child is prepared to go to the next level. Those are posted in the classroom. They're also posted online under our DCS resources page. So you can go to those and see everything from high school classes to 7th grade, 1st grade, doesn't matter, kindergarten, so on and so forth. We did that. So that's a completed deliverable that you'll see actually number 1 there on the left-hand side. And we moved from there into assessing those standards. So it's very important that we use data in the strength and intervention and extend enrichment. We'll talk a little more about those in a second. We need to have accurate data. If we're not assessing the correct standards, then we don't have accurate data. If we're not assessing the standards that we're teaching, we don't have accurate data. And a lot of places we were doing those things, but there were a couple areas we needed to clean up, and we did that. So over the evaluation cycle in this last year, teachers were asked to bring assessments. Principals went into classrooms doing observations to see different lesson plans and assessments and see how we're working through those things. So we've worked through those things in the last year, again, making sure that we've been able to show people that we are advancing forward because we have a strong staff that wants to do right by kids, wants to do the best possible job they can for kids, and having correct assessments is a part of that. Also, and that's under deliverable 3 there, kind of underneath that, which you can't see because of the completed tag, is that I delivered a gifted framework to the Board of Education, to the Board of Trustees, actually we call it here in the private world. So the Board of Trustees, the reason that was important for me to get into their hands in June of last year is kind of prepare them for the costs that are associated that we'll have in a couple of years if we intend to put a gifted program in, and that is our intention. But that obviously doesn't come for free. So I wanted them to understand the general framework of what that will cost, what it'll actually do, how it will help our students, so on and so forth. So we've given that to the board. They are aware of what that cost will be. They're aware of our timeline for implementation, and they'll, more than likely support those as we get closer to those needs being met. Where we're at right now is the academic council, which is made up of all the building leaders, our special ed director, our curriculum and instruction director, myself, a couple of our board members. We all meet together and we talk about what we're going to do the next year. So we're learning this year what we're asking the teachers and the faculty to strengthen themselves on next year. So all year in the academic council, we've learned about DOK, which is depth of knowledge, and we've learned about RTI, which is response to intervention. So in this next year, our intention is to start a fully functioning RTI process by the end of next school year. What does that mean? For some people, that means nothing. RTI means nothing. It's very important to have a systematic approach to intervention for students that are struggling. So we have what's called RTI, response to intervention. Basically, what that does is that takes every single student, K to 12, every single student. Doesn't matter if you're a 4.5 A++ student to a student that is struggling and just barely passing. And we put you in a program, in a system to show where you're at in relationship to multiple data points. Examples would be MAP scores, end of year test scores, common assessments. We can use IXL data. I mean, there's a ton of different things we can use to put into RTI. And each person is given a color-coded denotation, in essence, of where they're at. And then by that color, we know what type of intervention that person needs. So I won't get too deep in the weeds. We call that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And again, that's probably not of an interest to a lot of people, but just know that we are taking, again, a systematic approach to make sure every student gets what they need. And we're doing that with a slow and methodical but correct approach. We're not just rushing into it. We're not just throwing things together and saying we want to help kids as best we can and we're going to slap some ideas together. No, we're actually backing up just a little bit, reflecting over what we have now, looking at our personnel. Do we have the correct people? Do we have the people with the skill set that we need? Do we need to add more people to make sure that your student is getting what they need? And if they're not meeting the standard, how are we helping strengthen them to meet the standard before they move on to the next grade? Or if we have students come in that are maybe slightly behind, we want them to come in and start here at Dayton Christian, but they need a little bit of help to catch them up with everybody else. We want to make sure they are put into that system, that RTI system, and be able to move forward. What is DOK, depth of knowledge? Depth of knowledge is rigor. Basically, in layman's terms, it's how hard stuff is. So there are certain areas that we know we're reflecting over that we could make things just a little bit tougher. We can dig a little deeper, if you will. There's an old saying that you don't want to go an inch deep and a mile wide. You'd rather just go a couple inches wide and really, really deep. So that's kind of the thought process behind DOK. To understand that we just need to continue to get better and better when it comes to the information, the content, the lesson planning, the delivery of those lessons, the instructional strategies, and challenge our students a little bit more. If that student can't meet the challenge, we have RTI to support them and back them up. So that's what the Academic Council spent all year doing. A quick shout out to Angie Millar. Angie Millar is our curriculum and instruction coordinator. She does a fantastic job. She also runs RPD. So she runs teaching the teacher. She runs teaching the Academic Council and does a phenomenal job. Also, filling in as our interim elementary principal and doing a great job. I bet you if I have elementary faculty on here, they'd be clapping in their homes right now to applaud that statement. So thank you, Angie, for that. But also, she's getting us through this, and she'll return back to her position and be able to continue forward in this process. You can see how it says extend enrichment. That's where a lot of people have asked me, especially over the last maybe 12 months or so, what about a gifted program? I've had people that don't have kids at Dayton Christian reach out and say, I'm interested about Dayton Christian, and what's your gifted program like? And I'll be honest with you, it's an area that we need to improve in dramatically. We're not able to service gifted students like we want to be eventually. That is a goal of mine. I was blessed to have students of my own, kids of my own that were gifted in certain areas. So I want them to be able to, grow and challenge them in order to make them better and teach them how to learn, not just rote memorization. The problem is, just like with everything else, we need to make sure that the foundation is in place before we just throw spaghetti at a wall. And right now, we're still building that foundation. So people, even board members, would say, why can't we just jump into a gifted program right now? Why can't we do a gifted program right now? We want to get there. And I promise you, it is a goal of ours, as you can see on the document, but we can't do that until we're teaching the correct standards. We're assessing those standards with validity. We're putting all that into a system that helps students to make sure they're catching up. And then those students that are a little above, or maybe way above where they're supposed to be, then we can get them into enrichment, or that gifted kind of denotation there on the side. So for those of you that have asked, or those of you that are concerned, gifted programming is coming, as long as we have the financial support to back that. And right now we're in a good financial state, but I work on a budget just like everybody else does in their household, just like every business does. Even though we're a nonprofit, we still have to have a budget. We actually look at it in yearly and 5-year increments. So I'm looking down the road. I can tell the board, X amount of years from now, it's projected that we're going to make this much money. It's going to cost us this much to run the place, so on and so forth. And gifted programming is implemented into that budget. But we want to make sure we're being good stewards of our dollars to get us to the place where we still have money in order to do that. So that's a 5-year plan for academic excellence. Just wanted to do a quick touch base on that. Really feel like we're in a good spot. We're right on track with where we're supposed to be. In one of the deliverables, you'll see in deliverable 6, you have something called the high school pathways. So one of the things that I'm just very excited about is DC is really stepping out and believing that we can help students get a little further ahead, whether it's in their career choice that's right out of high school, or their career choice that goes through some sort of secondary education. We want to equip them to be the best they can be and prepared for college, or going into the workforce, going into a training program, technical program, whatever the case may be. One of the ways we want to do that is we want to introduce career choices throughout their time from the end of 6th grade year all the way through high school. I've said this before. I'll do a quick synopsis. So at the end of 6th grade year, take Bright Path, and we have kids understand what their strengths are. It's put into a digital portfolio, their strengths, their interests, their innate abilities, their God-given abilities. Some people are just good at math. My dad is just good at math. He's just good at it. Whether he's had all the technical training or not, he's just good at it. That's an innate ability. But he doesn't maybe necessarily enjoy it. So if he takes a class on math, maybe he would survey that class and say it wasn't very good, or he didn't like it, but he can do it really well. So we do that at the end of 6th grade year. We put them into a digital portfolio. So every single student that's currently a 7th grader has a digital portfolio that has that Bright Path in it. And then they go through the Project Lead the Way courses, which are multiple courses where it has at least 3 career clusters in each one of those courses. And then we survey them at the end of the course. That information gets put into their digital portfolio. The end of their 8th grade year, they meet with our college coordinator, and we talk about what their pathway may be in the future. So pathways could be outside of what I'm going to show now. We only have 2 in place. I should say we have 1 in place and 1 on the way. We have our pathway that's already in existence. So that's when you're taking, we're trying to get Dr. Bondistel back for his pre-engineering math class. That would be under the STEAM, or some of the courses taught by Mr. White, or some of these higher level honors courses that focus more on technology, engineering, mathematics. So that is already in place. What we're starting in 26, 27, you might have just recently read earlier today, we're bringing in a healthcare pathway. So when we surveyed in my very first year here, parents and students about what could be the next choice, what would be the kind of the natural progression of our pathways, healthcare rose to the top. And it was actually by a decent amount, because healthcare is a choice that a lot of our students go into. A lot of jobs right now, nursing. Oh my gosh, there's so many open nursing positions, so many new healthcare facilities. People are living longer, so we know that geriatric care is going to be needed. So with that in mind, we felt, why not put a healthcare pathway together and make sure that students know that we're giving them the best opportunity to be ahead of some of these other people, especially if they're going into post-secondary education. So going into, like a nursing program, we're going to have our kids that are a little bit ahead of the kids coming out from other schools, public schools, private schools, it doesn't matter, because they've received some of this information before and they have some of it in CCP credits. And when it's competitive, when, there's only 20 slots available to get into the certain program, we want to make sure our students have every opportunity to be at the top of that list. So if you're not familiar, you haven't seen this before, I'll go over it very quickly. So this is our healthcare pathway for next year. So it's taught by Tanya Barnett. It's a huge get for us, a phenomenal teacher that we got lucky and is retiring from Miami Valley CTC after more than a couple decades of teaching plus nursing experience. For that, you probably read that in the announcement. So multiple classes that'll be offered. Those will be scheduled starting this year for next year. Things like medical terminology, body systems 1 and 2, careers in health care, and then our nursing assistant program that we actually have currently through Kettering Health, and Mrs. Barnett will be taking that over. So excited. We're kind of decking out the room and all that good. So it's going to be a great pathway for our kids, and something that we're opening up with excitement to try to bring something new and kind of make the money worthwhile. You pay a lot of money to go to the high school. Hopefully one of the things that is a benefit is choices. Being able to say my child has multiple choices, whether it's a STEAM pathway, whether it's a healthcare pathway, whether it's maybe a business pathway, which is another one when surveyed is pretty high on that list. I have a preference for a teacher academy coming up next. I actually did that in my old district for a couple of years, and we'll get to that at some other time. But those are the types of things we're looking into just to make sure our kids have every opportunity to succeed. This is just an example of how we would speak to your child about, hey, what are some interests? These are just, a handful of examples. I want to be a physical therapist. I want to be an occupational therapy assistant. Maybe I want to go right into a cosmetology program or a vet tech program. Those are examples of healthcare pathway and how the healthcare pathway can assist your child in getting further along the lines and just being ahead of the curve when it comes to getting into some sort of the program or post-secondary education. So more on that coming in the future, but it is exciting stuff. I'll be honest with you. I've showed this to a lot of my head of schools that are also private school head of schools. I've shown this to even some public school superintendents. I do believe this is starting to try to set us apart when it comes to our high school, and be a flagship for private education, and do something a little ahead of maybe where some other people are, and again make those dollars stretch a little bit more. Let me get out of here and talk for just a second about, I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment and talk about the personnel updates. So we have some personnel updates that I'd like to, let me get back here. So many of you know that right now we have an interim elementary principal, which is Angie Miller, doing a wonderful job. But Angie and I agree that her passion and her skill set is definitely a benefit to us in her role as curriculum and instruction director. So she'll move back in that at the end of the year. So we are in the process of hiring an elementary principal. The way we do that is we put together a team of elementary teachers to talk about whether the non-negotiables, what are the things that we have to have out of this leader. And then we actually posted the position. At this time, we have 5 applicants. We will bring that kind of to a head on that posting will go off for a little while. If we feel we have the right amount of applicants, we'll move forward. Maybe we'll repost it. It just depends on, how we feel at the time. So we also have the middle school position, which Jen Molitor, which is now FOBAR, after her wedding just this past Valentine's weekend. So she is going to live with her husband, which is in like Eastern Brown County. If you don't know where that's at, then it's very, very far away. So unfortunately, not by her, being upset, or we certainly don't want to get rid of her, but she's doing it to honor her marriage, and that's absolutely what she should do. We're so happy for her. And then she's going to move on with that, and we're hiring a middle school principal. Again, another 5 candidates separate from the other 5 we have for the elementary have applied for that position. And I have a team, just like we have in the elementary, that's joining together and looking over those resumes, and we'll make a decision to bring some of those people, or maybe all those people, in and have the first round interviews. So teachers, Angie and myself will be a part of the first round, and then the second round will actually extend with board members. Some parents will be involved in that. A couple other people that are in the day-to-day. So that'd be like Dr. Griffiths, our special education coordinator, our counselors at both of those schools. And then we'll also have one of those teacher representatives come up with the second round. So lots of people around the table to make sure we're making good choices, and making sure we're vetting those candidates. And believe me, it's really, really, really important that we get these hires correct. And as a piece of that, when I was given the opportunity to share with things already said about being Christ-like at servant leadership, which we absolutely agree with, my term that I wanted to see up there was longevity. Looking to make a hire, and hopefully not make a hire in those positions for the rest of my tenure here, which is planning on being a long time, as long as the Lord and the board wills it. So hopefully this is our last time we're hiring and talking about these people for a while. But I want to let you know what that process is. So we'll finish those the postings. We'll bring people in, then a second round will occur if we have a clear person. I don't have an exact timeline on when that would be. I mean, if we take down the posting for the elementary on the 23rd and start interviews, and the middle school, it would be all the way into March already. So you're looking mid-March to late March before we would actually announce those positions and how they're moving forward. Just on that note for a second, I want to talk personnel for just a moment. I want to compliment Crystal Cox, Dr. Cox, who has taken over our HR functions here and done a great job. And I think our culture is starting to see a shift. And I just got to give you a quick story, and some of you will know this story already. So I started here on July 3rd, 2023. I come from the public school world after 23 years of experience, 7 as a superintendent. And in the public school world, if you still have an opening in July, you're concerned. Because most public school teachers have already got the position. And honestly, the people that you're picking from at that point, maybe they don't have a job at that point for a reason. So I got here on July 3rd, 2023. I sat in the conference room with about 10 people around the table. And I had just kind of in passing, somebody said something about our 13 openings. And I stopped and went, whoa, 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 what? What did you say? And I think it was James Holliday that said, yeah, our postings that we have out are 13 positions. And I said, 13 positions for what? And they said, for teachers. And I went, oh, no, no, no. We're not going to be looking for teachers in July. So you can see that we've already posted some teaching positions. But I want to bring up another point with that story. We had quite a bit of turnover for a couple of years. And actually, the school district that I went into as a superintendent had about a 30% turnover rate over a 4-year period before I got there. When I left, there was 2 people that were leaving, me and an elementary teacher. So turnover became something that was pretty small as a percentage. I'm starting to see those same things here. We are starting to make a real inroad when it comes to keeping people around. I believe employee retention is very important, and it's exciting to see the intent of people wanting to stay. So this year, I have our calculations here. We have about a 94% intent to return rate. That's really good. We know certain things are going to happen. Again, Jen Molitor is moving. She's not upset. She's not leaving because she, really kind of wants to. She's doing it because her life has made a change. We've had a retirement or 2. Again, those are not necessarily bad things. Those are just things that, we have to understand are going to happen. What we're not seeing as much of is people leaving because of the pay. And we're not seeing people leave because frustrated at supports or resources or direction, vision, things of that nature, which are things that were commented to us on exit interviews early in the process. So again, back to Dr. Cox and a compliment to her, taking that information, really honing in on the hiring process, making it very systematic and very sleek. My office assistant, which is Sarah Ann Bowers, doing a great job helping her out, getting people in, getting the right candidates in. We're having many more applications and quality applications, and we're not kind of pulling people in July trying to fill a position with a warm body. We're getting quality educators that we're excited to have here. So just really excited about the direction that we have in our personnel and the amount of people that we're seeing. Turnover, starting to drop just a little bit. I did want to show something real quick when it came to costs. So I totally understand, you pay a fee to go here. And I get that some people at times are a little frustrated. They're frustrated at the amount of cost to come to Dayton Christian. Obviously, we've had some increase in costs over the last 3 years. The increase for next year was more of what I call a cost of living. I'd love to keep it in that area, but if you're going to do big things, sometimes you have to have a little bit of cash influx in order to do those things. And we've made some big strides here in the last couple of years. Maybe even before that, that's why some of the costs have had to increase. One of the major pieces that I think people understand, but I just want to reiterate, is that we have a wonderful building. God has blessed and blessed Bud. If you've ever heard that story of how we were able to purchase this building for pennies on the dollar, literally pennies on the dollar, we're very, very blessed to be here. And it's a large campus. It's a large set of buildings, and with that comes a lot of cost. And it is a building from 1968. Now, built really, really well. Really well. In fact, I've talked to numerous people and said, hey, this place is built like a fortress. But it's old, and it's going to have a lot of things go wrong, whether HVAC. We just had let me give you a good example. I'll let you inside. I'll break the books open for just a little bit. So we put plenty of money away for what we call CapEx, which is money that we know stuff's going to break, and we've got money in a pot that we can pull from and fix. But even if we try to prepare, stuff still happens. So we had a pipe burst in an area above one of the buildings that completely shattered due to the extremely low temperatures. And the way that it was built, designed many, many years ago, decades ago, wasn't the greatest design in the world. It caused this huge shattering pipe, which then broke pieces of different, HVAC systems and so on and so forth. So the whole system is gone. It is completely ruptured. We will not be able to fix it with just duct tape and, bubble gum and Band-Aids. So unplanned, just completely out of the blue, that's $100,000 cost. Now, we do make a decent amount of money in tuition, but we're paying our teachers, we're paying our administrators, we're paying the heat bills and light bills. $100,000 just coming out of nowhere, even though we have money prepared, is a big hit to that fund. So when those types of things happen, people say, well, why did my tuition go up? I'm not saying that's the only reason your tuition went up. That is part of the reason your tuition went up, because we have to make sure that your student has heat and air conditioning. And we're fixing one of the chillers right now and trying to get air turned on with these warmer temperatures, going as fast as we can. But I mean, we're still getting parts, and we still have to do labor for things like that. Those are the types of things that come up when you have an older facility. So I thought I'd put this up here for just a second. These are updated numbers, something prepared by Jolie Thompson, who does a great job in making sure that we have everything facing forward and done with aplomb. So this is kind of where annual costs lie. 73%, which is pretty normal, goes to personnel. In the public school world, you probably see that number between 75 to 80%, but 16% in maintenance. That's a lot of money that we have to use to maintain this place, whether it's personnel costs to maintain it or actual parts and labor and different things of that nature. Obviously, we've updated our curriculum. That number of 5% wasn't 5% just a few years ago. So we've updated the curriculum, the classroom support, done some really good things with that money. But I just want to make sure everybody understands that it's not just, frivolous spending. I'm not even saying that people think that. I understand that people, don't want to pay more money. You got taxes that have went up, especially in this area, in the state area, that you've had maybe, certain dollars that have been due to levies and things of that nature in your home school district. I personally, in the school district I'm in, now pay a 1% earned income tax that I wasn't paying before. I totally understand it. I totally get it. But I just want to make sure, we're being good stewards of your dollars. We're making sure that those money, first and foremost, goes back to support our good staff, our good faculty. That's just as a little note. So going back in 3 cycles, our faculty pay has increased 28.33%. Now, that sounds like a big number, but before you go, wow, well, maybe that's where all the money's going. Well, the number was pretty low 3 cycles ago. So it's still next year, our starting teacher pay will be $38,500 with a BA0. That means a bachelor's degree with no experience. In comparison, if you go to a public school, I'll just give you one single. Lakota is like 54,000. Again, I'm not compared to Lakota. I don't want to be Lakota, but that just shows you that even though that percentages went up, it's still really far behind our public school counterparts. When it comes to our private school counterparts, I've actually spoken to a bunch of head of schools in the last week or so, and we've been talking starting pay. We're right where with everybody else, maybe slightly ahead by a couple people, and with a couple other people slightly behind. So right in the pack where we probably should be for the size that we are. But just a quick note there, that's kind of where your money goes, or part of where your money goes. All right, let's talk. I'm going to drop this down for just a second, and we're going to bring up hold on, stay with me. My stop sharing is right in the way. I'm going to go back. All right. So, NPC update. If you've paid attention and kind of been on my Instagram, you would know that we are trucking right along when it comes to that. We have been really impressed with Level and B. They've done a phenomenal job, and I've had many people, and I mean probably no less than 100 people have stopped me at basketball games in the hallway, faculty, staff, parents, grandparents, and said, wow, they're really cooking on that thing. And they are. They've worked in 0 and -4 degree weather. It's been pretty impressive. I thought I'd take just a second and do a quick run through. I know for some people, they still kind of question, why are we doing this NPC, or why do we do the NPC? And I really want that field out front. Okay, let me just review real quick. So the NPC's purpose is to create academic space both in the NPC and back in the buildings. So a lot of people know that we have what we call the faux gym, which is a padded room that your child possibly, or maybe you personally, if you went here, had as a gymnasium. Regular ceilings, just like my height right here in my office. It's not really a good place. It's not conducive to PE. So we want that PE class to go to the NPC. Now they're going to have in an actual gym. Having 2 gyms on campus makes all the sense in the world with all the basketball, volleyball, different sporting events that we have. But it's also, academic space that we're going to use. We also committed to a new weight room, which is 2,400 square feet, which we'll use for our faculty, our staff, all of our student athletes. It's just going to be a great space and a great commitment to that. Why we did that before the field is great, but the field doesn't give me academic space back, and I'm not preparing for the harvest of students that we're going to get if I do the field first. So the NPC went first. It's been very successful, both in the financial fundraising side of things and where they're at right now in the completion of the project. So I want to dig in for just a second. I'll run through this. I'll maybe make a couple starts and stops just so you can see it. And real quick, shout out to Cody McPherson for doing this video for me. Thank you. So real quick, people have asked me, where are you going to enter? So what he just did is showed you that we're going to go, we're not going to have those doors there anymore. So what our emergency doors are now going to be an opening. So that opening will go right into the connector that'll put you between the Warrior Center and the NPC. These doors will turn into doors with glass in them, so you can also exit this way back into the connector. In this connector real estate is going to be fun stuff like, we'll have advertisements for different events on electronic boards. Then we'll have like record boards, state championships, different things of that nature that are displayed there just to support the people that went through those. Gotta have restrooms. So this is where the restrooms will be, 5 restrooms across, handicap accessible on the left, 4 other ones there on the right. There's also a maintenance or janitorial closet there for us to use. Going back up the connector. So as you would expect, this is the largest portion. They actually started putting paint on the walls today. It's kind of cool. Primer first, of course, and then we'll color that up after that. So this is the main gym area. It's a solid wood floor, so it's not a synthetic surface. So we'll be able to hold all kinds of contests, middle school, all kinds of practices. Youth league will be in here, and they'll really be able to own the space, especially on those long winter Saturdays. So it'll be a fun spot for people. It's a full high school size gymnasium floor. So it's not a small floor. It'll have side baskets to go across and the baskets obviously at the end. There's also an additional 15 feet at the end. So we can have additional practice space trying to get people out of the SLC and use that space for more of academic needs and obviously things after school for meetings and that. So we did take our staff in there, our faculty in there, and some of our staff, and then the rest of the staff goes in Wednesday to sign beams and sign drywall and things like that. We're also going to do that with students. So once the construction is pretty much complete, we'll have a floor in the weight room, which I'll show you in just a second, and we're going to have students sign that floor because eventually it'll be covered with rubber matting, but we don't want to take them in there when there's any concern whatsoever of a safety issue. Again, 2,300 square foot or 2,400 square foot. It's actually 24,550, but still 2,400 square foot. All new weight equipment. In fact, I finished up those quotes with our strength and conditioning coach today. So all new, really cool colored, logoed weight equipment. It's going to be great, and our student athletes can use that. Our faculty, our staff can use that as well. So it's going to be some exciting stuff to have. So one of the things we lack here as we start to get bigger is storage. So there's going to be two large storage facility spaces right here, one on the top floor, one on the bottom. And then the area that Cody has the camera in right now is also storage. So that's going to be very beneficial for just the school overall. At first, we're not going to finish the offices up here. That was planned because we want to make sure that we're taking care of all of our student athletes that are getting displaced out of the building. So we're going to let that work for probably a year, maybe two. The goal is eventually to have our athletic offices up there as well as a team meeting room that can be a video room. There will be starting, in May, there will be static seating, aluminum bench seating up here. There'll also be seating down here, bench seating in the against this flat wall here that will extend and retract, and that'll be for games and youth league events and so on and so forth. So they call this the observation deck, and when I've taken people in there to do a tour, it seems like this is kind of the spot they get pretty excited about. So you'll be able to watch the game from this second floor, great view. It's just going to be exciting stuff. Got a little surprise planned for you when it comes to the outside view and facade. I'll share that at another time, or maybe just wait until we get all the way till the unveiling. So again, appreciate Cody doing that for us. It's going to be a great space. Very excited about it. Financially in a great at. I'm actually going to meet with the board on Monday. We have a board meeting Monday night. Some of that conversation is just where we're at in total with the MPC. I'd love to see us just be able to seal this up, and I think we're right there. I think our toe is on the finish line, and then we're going to give them a couple options to maybe just push us over the finish line so we can wrap up the MPC, call it done. They'll finish it up probably around May 1st. We will do a public unveiling. We'll do an open house. We'll probably bring our students in there before that so they can see it, and then we'll bring community members in an evening just to celebrate what God has done for us. And it has been a blessing that God has bestowed on us, because the process so far has went really well. And the financial support has been amazing. It really was just obviously a project inspired by God to see how quickly things were just taken care of financially, and just we're blessed, tremendously blessed. So looking forward to having that up and running. Like I said, hopefully by May 1st. Should be something that you should be very proud of and be able to use here in the near future. Some people have talked about the field as well, so I'd like to update you on kind of where we're at with that. This is not going to be quite as detailed because there are some things up in the air that I will know by Monday. Actually, I'll probably know by Friday night. I'll dig into them over the weekend. And then by Monday at the board meeting, we'll have vetted all of the bids and so on and so forth, and start talking about a general contractor and seeing where we're at in this project. So this is a rendering. I want to be very, very clear. This is just a rendering. There's pieces of this that will not look the exact same. For example, the jump pit that you see on my right, which would be the northern part of the track, is actually on the other end, because the field events will face towards Spring Valley. So all of the long jump and pole vault and all of those things are on, we'll call it the south end. So even though you see them here on the north end, it's going to be on the south end. The lights, as you can see, the stands, press box, things of that nature. There's obviously things like ticket booths and other sidewalks that'll go around the corner that aren't necessarily on here, but you get the general gist. So what we ask people to bid on is basically in three parts. Part one, and what people would know called the base bid. If you're any part of building or construction, it's the base bid. So the base bid is the drainage that we're going to need. So obviously this is a very flat space. We need a significant amount of drainage and earthwork and support for that, and piping and different things of that nature. Plus there's a ton of drainage under this because it's a turf field. So we asked them to bid on the drainage. We asked them to bid on the fencing around it for protection. We asked them to bid on all the concrete work. We asked them to bid on a track, a field, a scoreboard. I'm just trying to think. That was I'll say that's the majority of base bid, basically. So those are the things that kind of are non-negotiable, if you will. Like these are the minimum that we would want to have. Then we have what's called alternates 1 and alternates 2. Alternate 1 is the lights. So the lights, as you can guess, are very expensive. Now we'll probably go ahead and put the concrete foundation in for those lights, even in the base bid. That is part of the base bid. But actually erecting the light poles would be part of an alternate 1, meaning additional dollars it would take to get us to where we're at now to be able to put the lights up. Alternate 2 is the stands and the press box. If anybody is in construction, they know aluminum cost is going through the roof and has been for a while now. So we've seen a significant increase even when we started rendering this project to even now in the cost of what the bleachers would be. So again, just to reiterate, so we have put out an RFP, request for proposal, and basically we're asking for bids. And in that bid, we're asking these GCs, these general contractors, to say, what do you build the field and put a scoreboard up and a track and fencing and drainage and concrete work and so on and so forth. Then if we added alternate 1, which would be the lights, how much would that be? If we added alternate 2, which is the bleachers and the press box, as you see it here, what would that be as alternate 2? So I just want to make sure everybody has their expectations set at a level that, is reasonable and makes sense. So we have been blessed, tremendously blessed, as we have with the MPC, with millions of dollars of donations. Unfortunately, this project is going to be millions on millions of dollars completed. So if you were to just use rough numbers, and please, I'm reiterating, these are just rough numbers, just for exemplary purposes. So if you said a field and a track and those scoreboards and the concrete work and all that fun base bid stuff is about 4 million. Okay, great. We can roll with that. Then you get into lights. Then you get into stands. Well, you're talking another 500,000 plus for lights, or, maybe we get a deal and get them down there, because we have to have, if you've not heard this before, canopy lights. Canopy lights means that they're more expensive and they shine down instead of out. You see all the residences behind us. You see the condos across the street. We had to turn in a photometric map, and we had to have less than a half-foot candle reach the road. That's very hard to do. In fact, this iteration will look a little different because there's actually 3 poles on this side closest to the road, and they're pushed in a little bit more. This doesn't include visitors bleachers. That's something we'll have to visit down the road. So you'd have to cut those bleachers in half and put visitors on one side, home on the other. So it is going to be, we'll say our best case scenario is still going to need additional things added to it in future use. You don't see a locker room, you don't see a field house, you don't see concession stands and all things of that nature. Now, we had to turn those plans in to the township because they needed to see all the possible things we're going to do for water runoff and for zoning purposes. So in our plans to the township, there is a actual field house in that. There are visitor stands in that, but right now that's not even a part of alternates 1 or 2. So if God puts it on your heart, and I do have people say every once in a while that it seems like I ask for money quite a bit. I understand that. I'd say that's actually part of my job, but I get it. It can be frustrating if you feel like we're always trying to tap you for money. So I'm just letting you know where we're at. We have money for our base bid, but if we want to take this, we'll say, to a level of varsity usage, we're going to need to fill in a gap. What is the gap? I'm not going to say. You know why? Because I don't have real numbers until Friday at 5 o'clock. So when I go into that board meeting on Monday, I'll be able to say, board, this is how much it's going to cost to do these things, alternate 1, alternate 2. Then we'll come back out to the community and say, hey, this is what we have as far as finances so far. This is what we're lacking, and this is what we'd be able to purchase if we had that money. So again, if rich Uncle Bobby or somebody is, put it on their heart that they want to help with this project, you can either reach out to me, M. Baker at DaytonChristian.com, or you can reach out to Carly Cox, which is ccox at DaytonChristian.com, our new Chief Development Officer, and we can talk about this project and kind of how you can help us with that. Okay. But that's where we're at right now. Lots of information coming on Friday at 5 o'clock, and then a lot of further information after the board meeting on Monday, and we'll kind of send that out to the community in hopefully the next month or so, once we've vetted some, people and picked the GC and so on and so forth. So I just want to also take just a second and step back for just a second. It's a huge undertaking, but there's multiple reasons why this is such a good idea. Number one, it brings everybody home on campus. I mean, we want everybody to not have to travel 20, 25 minutes or go down to Harmon Field in Miamisburg. Everybody's right here on our campus. This is our home. We want you here and we want you safe. Secondarily to that, I want to make sure that we have a premier product. I know you do too. I know you want to make sure that, as the Bible says in 1 Corinthians, that we're giving our excellence to the Lord. This is a piece of being a premier product. This is a piece of giving excellence. There's no other school district in our conference that doesn't have a field. We're the only one. That doesn't mean we should necessarily get it. We should get it anyway. But I'm just saying, if we want to be that premier product, we want to be a light that shines to other people, and they say, hey, my kid could go to Dayton Christian, have every single thing that they have at the public school, except they now get to talk about Jesus. They get to pray. They get to go to chapel. Why wouldn't I want that opportunity? This helps us get that. That helps us reach that plateau, or that milestone, I should say. Better fit for that milestone. So excited about this project. Still got a long way to go about it, but stay excited with me, because it's going to be real neat as we see the Lord work through this. And I believe that, like he's done with so many other things, he is going to bless us with this project as he's blessed some other things. Now, what's as exciting as talking about a field? A parking lot, obviously. I knew that was the next thing you were going to say. So let's talk about a parking lot. Also, and one of the reasons I think it's important to share this on the state of the schools, you may think, well, why are you talking about a parking lot? I don't care about a parking lot. Well, a lot of people do. So we get a lot of survey information. I don't just toss that in a drawer somewhere. Julie does not just toss that in a drawer somewhere. We vet that information. We look over that information. We detail it to the board and say, this many people said this. We send unscripted, unedited comments to the board to say, hey, this is the information we got back when we asked for it. One of the things that we get quite a bit of comments about is the parking lot. I don't need to tell you that it's in rough shape. So we have worked with Kleinger's, which if you're anywhere in the construction world, you know Kleinger's name. I've worked with them for many, many years. They do a great job. They did a traffic study for us a couple of years ago. I've now employed them to help us with concept and design of a new parking lot. Again, I also want to kind of give some flashing lights here. I just want to show a concept to show you that we're moving forward, that we're trying to create solutions and safe solutions for your kids. Couple things. What I'm showing you is probably not the end result. This is the second iteration of what will happen to be 6 or 7 versions probably. So I'm just giving you a little snapshot, just giving you a little picture. Number 2, I'm not saying that we can do this right now. This is millions of dollars, millions of dollars. I mean, a minimum of $2 million. And that would be if we cut every corner and, made just the slightest changes we could possibly make. What I want to do is a complete redesign because I do not like students crossing 4 lanes of traffic. I don't like parents. I don't like staff crossing 4 lanes of traffic. So one of the main reasons, besides the fact the parking lot is in atrocious shape, is that we don't want people crossing lanes of traffic. So this version, and even the version underneath it, starts to take away that, not perfectly, and that's why we'll continue more iterations after more iterations, like this one, for an example. And I'll get it a little bit bigger. An example here to show you that, like, we're thinking of things like this one has the buses that don't cross any lanes of traffic with students. So the buses would swing in, park, and then swing right back out. This would also change our entrances to both entrance exit and our exits to both entrance exit. So one of the biggest complaints I get is that it's not necessarily once you get on campus, because once you get on campus, you get through the lane pretty quickly. It's turning back onto Washington Church or waiting on Washington Church or Spring Valley to get onto campus. So in order to help with that, we need to do a couple things. We need you to have 2 entry points. That's very important to have 2 entry points. By having 2 entry points, now I can split up the traffic a little bit. And then I need to be able to queue more cars on campus. So if I have a straight in and a straight out, I'm only using a certain distance and linear footage of our parking lot and our campus. The designs that we're talking about here loop people in and loop people out the same entrance and exit, which allows us to queue a lot more cars off of the street. So I'm not saying by any means, again, flashing lights, I'm not saying you'll never have to wait on Washington Church. I'm not saying you'll not have to wait on Spring Valley. I'm saying we are trying to be cognizant of that and create a design that gives less time on the road, less time waiting. Not perfect, just less time. Also, I don't want people crossing lanes of traffic. So this example right here, you wouldn't cross lanes of traffic. You would drop off to a central column, or in this one, it's actually 2 columns, this way and this way, always exiting on the right side. And you would be able to get out and your student would walk down a concrete path where no cars would ever go across that path, right to the front sidewalk, down and into the building. Again, trying to create a safer environment. I have been on crosswalk duty sometimes where it's scary. Sometimes kids they don't pay attention. We've added some paint, we've added some cones. We have 4 people out there in the morning, 4 people out there in the afternoon. We try to do the best we can, but we need to just eliminate it. We just need to eliminate cross traffic. So again, for those of you that have mentioned in your surveys, hey, the parking lot's atrocious, it's a mess. You nailed it. Absolutely, it is. We are actively seeking solutions, working with a fantastic engineering company to see how we can maximize the use of our space without losing a ton of parking spaces. Actually, in this iteration, we actually gain a few parking spaces. Also in this, we would gain a few parking spaces. So like this would be, these are two good versions for us to, because if we're going to have, big stadium here and all these people coming for games, then we need them to have a place to park. So working on it, be very clear. I don't have a timeline. Can't tell you that it's going to be this summer. It's certainly not going to be this summer because I wouldn't put new asphalt down and then pull bulldozers all over it in order to get to the field. So it's not going to be this summer. We'll see what happens after that. It's going to be very, very expensive. So that means we're going to have to make sure it fits inside of our budget. And again, on those things where you kind of start looking at that tuition and you're really happy about the spiritual life and you're really happy about your teachers and you feel like you've got resources here at Dayton Christian, but you're just wondering why you got to pay a little bit extra. Again, I'm not saying it all goes to the parking lot, but these are the types of projects that again set us apart and make us what you wanted us to be, and that is that premier product. Okay. So you're probably saying to yourself, how can I give more money? I'm joking. Let me get out of this real quick. So I need to take some time, and I'm doing pretty good on time. I think we're going to have a little time. I really only have about two more points, and then I'm going to shoot you with a couple plugs real quick. Okay. So the SGO, the Scholarship Granting Organization, I just want to take a minute and make sure everybody understands that. And let me take a little sip here. So the SGO, which we have our own SGO, Dayton Christian SGO, it is set up that you can redirect your state tax dollars to go to us and get a complete dollar for dollar credit on your tax return. And then that money comes back to you. So I'm going to use myself as an example. So I work here. My wife, lovely wife, is a dental hygienist. Okay. She's in Wilmington. She has a job as well. We both pay state tax. We pay a considerable amount of state tax. So just a couple of days ago, I came and wrote a check that said Dayton Christian SGO, $1,500. So that's $750 for my wife, $750 for me because we happen to file jointly. Okay. That is the max that I can give and get a dollar for dollar credit. So I gave the Dayton Christian check SGO $1,500. Then I get a receipt as I would with a tax deduction benefit. And I happen to do my own taxes, whether you care or not. So I do them on TurboTax. I can even tell you what screen it's going to be on because I've done it the last couple of years. I'll go to my state tax return. It will ask, did you give to a scholarship granting organization? I'm going to click yes. And then it's going to give me a drop down menu of all the SGOs in the state of Ohio. Dayton Christian being one of them. I'll slide down, I'll click it. Boom. My little number at the top is going to go blah, 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 and it does make that noise. And it's going to give me my money back. So it is a dollar for dollar credit. It's not a tax deduction where it lowers your AGI and you get a little bit of that back. It gives you a dollar for dollar credit. And we get to keep your state tax money. We get to use it. We use that first and foremost for scholarships for students that struggle to pay tuition. So whether they're low income or maybe they've just had something crazy happen, it's happened in maybe some of your guys' life where a fire happens or somebody loses their job. One of my best friend's wife lost her job after 26 years today, completely unexpected. Never saw it coming. They eliminated a whole department. That kind of stuff happens. The SGO can step in and support people like that. And by you giving to the SGO, you're helping people stick around here. You're helping people that have a need. We also can use a portion of that money for projects here as well. So you may say to yourself, I kind of like that field idea, but I don't have a lot of money to give because I'm spending all my tuition. That makes sense. And I appreciate you doing that. We want your child here. But here's a way where you can give and get all the money back, 100%, dollar for dollar. Now, I guess I'll jump to a part where you might be saying, well, $750 in a check right now to give to you. Okay, that's fine. You can do it until April 15th. So you can do it before you file your taxes. And we know you can file your taxes till April 15th. You also can give less than $750. Maybe you don't have enough money to front and then get that money back. That makes sense. You're on a different budget. I get it. No problem. Maybe you write the check for $350 and then you put that $350 in your tax return. You get all $350 back. So it's a dollar for dollar credit where we get to keep the money. And that can help us pay for projects like the field. That can help us pay for scholarships for kids that need it. So you are benefiting Dayton Christian, then cost you a dime, just cost you a little bit of time, basically. If you have any question on that, we have a very good website. Again, this is not asking for a donation. That's different. That's where you give us money and you don't get any money back. This is a credit. This is a tax credit up to $750 per individual, $1,500 for a married couple filing jointly. If you go to our Dayton Christian website, you can go to our community, which is on the left-hand tab right here. Go to Dayton Christian SGO, and we have detailed all that information for you. Huge benefit for us. It's such a blessing. I mean, so many kids have benefited from it over the last couple of years, and then we've benefited to support some of these projects that we're doing. It truly is a win-win. It is an absolute win. One more thing, and then we'll get to some questions. Well, actually, one more, and then a quick plug. So, school choice. Some people have asked me, well, what about school choice? What's going to happen with school choice? Obviously, I can't guarantee anything, but I can share what we know at this point. So I'm a part of a group that meets usually quarterly, maybe every 6 weeks or so. And we are the 20 biggest private schools in the state of Ohio. We meet with a group called School Choice. And I understand not everybody uses Ed Choice Scholarship. I get that. This is for the people that do, though. And that is a majority of our people. So Ed Choice, our scholarship program, it did lose in a Franklin County court, which we knew was going to. They were allowed to pick where they sued us or sued, we'll say the voucher system. It's about 330 school districts, the last count, I believe. And they believe that giving money to private schools is unconstitutional. The Franklin County Court agreed with him, and the judge said, although I agree, we're gonna stay the result, the verdict, so the program can continue. The Attorney General, David Yost, appealed it immediately, and probably sometime in this calendar year, we will end up in the 10th District Court of Appeals. It will probably lose in that Court of Appeals. So again, we got once in Franklin County, once in the Court of Appeals. It will then be appealed to the state Supreme Court. By no means, again, can I guarantee you that it's going to be found constitutional at the state Supreme Court level, but I will say that if you look at the makeup of the state Supreme Court right now, it would feel a high level of confidence to state it's probably not going anywhere. Now, things happen. Trust me, politics is crazy. You know that. But I would say that there should be a high level of confidence that the program that you have now available to you is a program that's going to be around for a long, long time. A couple notes to that. One, it is pretty clear that the dollars are not going to go up. So we have a certain amount allotted in the entire scholarship. There are 5 scholarships in total. Some are like Autism Scholarship, John Peterson, which is for special needs students. So all 5 in total, that dollar figure is not going to change. So your voucher allotment is not going to go up anytime soon. So you got to work off the money. And in my opinion, let's just keep the program. I wish we could get more dollars, but we can't. That's okay. And I just want to be clear that this is not taking money from public schools. So I was a public school superintendent. I can tell you, and with 100% certainty, not even 99%, these are 2 completely different line items in the budget. Most people, most school districts work on what's called the guarantee. My former school district was on the guarantee. So I would have had to lose 330 students before I started to see any reduction in state funding. So I got the same, I was there for 7 years. I got the same exact every year. I can tell you blank, 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 blank. I mean, year after year after year, because I was on the guarantee. We have a video about this. I've actually had a couple staff members say, hey, I watched that video you and Cody did. It actually helped me explain it to my public school friends to let them know we're not stealing money from you. What the assumption is that if we don't give it to the private schools, then we're just going to turn around and take that line item and shove it into the public funding. And that's just simply not necessarily accurate. There are some school districts that go by ADA, which is daily attendance, and by students coming to private school. Somewhere down the road, they could see a reduction in funding because they have less kids there. But again, a lot of school districts are on the guarantee because of the change in funding in 2007, and that means that it would take a dramatic change in population for them to have any dollars lost. Okay. If you want to see that, it's in the description. It's in the YouTube description. So you can go to that link, watch the video of Cody and I speaking about it. If you have any questions, obviously reach out to us and we'll be glad to help you have that conversation. All right. Got a little time. So let me give two quick plugs. We have coming up, got my script. We're excited to announce the Dayton Christian School will be hosting a Christian college fair on Wednesday, March 4th. Again, Wednesday, March 4th, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. in the Warrior Center. We've done this for a couple of years, very successful. This fair is held in partnership with NACCAP, the North American Coalition for Christian and Missions Professionals, say that 3 times fast, an organization dedicated to connecting families with Christ-centered colleges and universities. We will be having over 25 Christian colleges and universities represented on our campus, and parents are invited to attend. Again, parents, you're invited to attend alongside their students. Again, March 4th, 2 to 4 p.m., Warrior Center lobby. It was packed. I mean, packed last year. Try to get there a little early if you can. But it's a great event. Giving a little shout out to Tiffany Beal for helping us get that together, along with Darren Gentry at the top there and Renetta Hendricks. Also, just a quick thing, theater. If you didn't get to see the middle school performance of Junie B. Jones, absolutely amazing. My wife and I really enjoyed it, laughed. It was a great time. Thank you, Laura Mullen, for resurrecting that middle school program after 5 years, and we're excited about that. Also, if you're excited about musicals, we have coming up in the spring Pirates of Penzance. Unfortunately, we didn't get Robert Goulet to play the main character role, but I'm sure Dean's still happy with everybody he's got. So come out and support the theater program as well, coming up here in the spring for the musical. Just started practice not too long ago. It's kind of neat. They do a lot of that stuff in the auditorium that's right next to my office here. So I get to pass by and watch them practice dance and listen to songs and so on and so forth. They haven't asked me to join in yet, which is, a little frustrating, but maybe one day. You never know. I'd need to stretch before I start dancing. So, okay. And by the way, I believe that's April 10th and 11th. And I want to say April 16th, 17th, 18th. And if I apologize to our theater friends if those are not correct. But April 10th, the 11th, and then April 16th, 17th, 18th as well. So excited about seeing that. Let's take some questions. How about that? So if you have a question, the number, it's in the descriptor of the YouTube link, or the YouTube description, sorry, box. It's 513-655-7438. Again, 513-655-7438. See if I'm going to wait just a second and see if we get a couple questions here. And as I get them, let me have just a moment to read and see if I can respond. Okay, question about gifted program. Good question. Basically, once it gets up and running, who will it be provided to, and kind of what will be the options for kids? That's a great question. As part of the framework, it does kind of break down per grade or per building. So high school, middle school, elementary. Some of the things at the high school level, for example, are like AP courses, honors courses, ACT prep classes, things of that nature. The gifted programming, especially at the high school, looks a little bit different than probably what most people That's that elementary level, even to the middle school level. In the middle school level, there's some similarities. You're going to have an honors class or honors classes. You can do a traditional, what you call a pull-out program. There's also a push-in program. Luckily, Jen Molitor, who, although is leaving us, is going to come back and help us with some things and consult with us on a few things. She is a gifted intervention specialist, so her skill set will help us with things of that nature. But I don't know that I have a list of things to provide for you when it comes to what's going to be offered at the high school level, the middle school level, the elementary level, because honestly, a lot of that is still just up in the air. Plus, some of it is a philosophical maybe a choice that we need to make. And some people believe in a push-in program. Some people believe in a pull-out program. We also are going to need to buy additional gifted curriculum. So some curriculum will go at too slow of a pace. We'll need to have books that just treat the class a little bit different. So there's investment in that. Again, I try to be pretty transparent. I can't say all the nooks and crannies. I mean, just to get this up and running is going to be every bit of $350,000. And then more than likely, there'll be $150,000 of personnel cost each year. And then, occasionally there'll be, probably some upticks in curriculum cost again on a cyclical basis. So we're not talking just, we're going to hire a teacher or we're going to buy some books or something like that. We're talking a full commitment to have a GIS, to have a gifted coordinator, a service coordinator. Again, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it with excellence because God calls us to do it with excellence. And there's going to be a price tag that goes along with that. So, I wish I could give you a little bit better answer. I hope that helps just a little bit. Yeah, it says plans for an engineering pathway. So we have pieces of that now. As we add to that, it would be added into the STEAM pathway. So that engineering aspect of the STEAM pathway, again, a good example. If anybody knows Dr. Von Distel, professor at Wright State, his wife actually teaches here, taught a class, like a pre-engineering math class. That would be an example that would be embedded into that STEAM pathway. I don't know that we would have the student count to make we'll just say engineering only pathway. Maybe if we end up getting survey data that would support that, I'd absolutely go look at that as an option. But I think we are and have added little pieces to that, whether it's even a robotics conversation that helps in just an engineering philosophy, a higher level physics class as Mrs. Fisher teaches, things of that nature, hopefully would help people towards that engineering pathway. Also, let me tell you about somebody that's new to the school district this year, and that's Chaz Crawley. So Chaz Crawley is our transition coordinator. Did many years of that service in Dayton Public Schools or in the Belmont School District in the general area of Dayton Public, I should say. We've brought him on full-time here. He's doing a great job making connections with businesses. One of the things he could do is look at apprenticeships and internships. So he works with a plethora of different students. And one of the things that he's doing is building those relationships with some of these higher level internships, whether it's engineering, whether it's architecture, whether, looking into the manufacturing field and things of that nature. So I do think those opportunities are coming. But just like anything else, we're trying to build those the correct way and make sure that we build good, solid foundations. Plus, we also vet pretty heavily. You would expect us to, of who we're working with and making sure that we're working with people, although they may not be necessarily a Christian organization. There's not a lot of, solely Christian organizations maybe in that field. But we do want to put a child into a situation or a student into a situation that we know is still beneficial to them and not putting them in a situation that's going to make them, concerned or questioning anything. So working on that. That's something you'll hear a little bit more about in the future. Latest on the softball field. So, yep. So we have, I'll say right now, we have plans. We have, this is going to be, I don't know how much detail you want. I'll try to make it quick. So one of the things that we're doing is we're moving the softball field over to, we'll say, the west side into the green space that is currently being used as like playground space or field space. But we have to cut some of those trees down. There is something called the Indiana, I want to say Wombat. So there are rules that we have to follow when it comes to that, and certain times that we can fell trees, which is mean chop them down. Also, we had to do a wetlands delineation. And yes, that was really, really fun. It was also not cheap. That is taken care of, already done. Our field consultant said, hey, if you're going to put the field here, your softball field here, you're going to have a wetlands delineation certificate that says it's not a wetlands. Luckily, it's not a wetlands. That means we can't actually construct on that. So as they take dirt from what's outside of my window right here, which is where the field will be, they're actually going to truck it to that part of the campus. One, that saves us a little bit of money. Two, we have to elevate that space by about 9 to 10 inches. I'll probably stop right there because there's still a lot of things up in the air before I say too much. And maybe I want to always under promise and over deliver. So we do have a plan, very detailed plan, but there's still some steps that I need to make sure are taken care of before we lay that plan out for everybody to see. Says, is it possible to stream more basketball games from the Warrior Center? Yeah, I mean, I watch tons of games from the Warrior Center. Every game is on the Huddle Fan app. So I've watched a lot of games sitting on my kitchen table. So hopefully, if those aren't, that we can definitely get that. I would reach out to Kristen Blatz, would be my first person to reach out to and see if there's something we can kind of detail as far as information about streaming. Okay. Will Dayton Christian ever return to the no homework or test on Wednesday that used to be an enforced policy that our kids can go to church? Well, I would hope kids are going to church whether they have homework or not. But yes, I mean the answer is yes. So it's been a conversation quite a bit over this last year. So I'm new. I'm still within my second year. I consider that new. I'm sorry. I'm in my third year. Finishing my third year. There's policies that we've went through, and we went through that book. I can show you over there, that 5-inch binder with a lot of emphasis, and there's still stuff that I'm learning. So this is a policy that is in place. It is something that does exist. The enforceability of it probably is what's being put into question. And it's something that we've talked about at the academic council meetings. I know you don't need me to tell you this because you're the parent and you're going to make the best choice for your child, but we absolutely want your child to be able to go to church. Now, I go to what I'd call more of a traditional church, if you will. I have Wednesday night service. I was there last night. But there's a lot of people that have like small group on Thursdays and small group on Tuesdays and Saturday evening church and things of that nature. So I think the old way of looking no homework on Wednesday, not a bad way to look at things. I would go even further with that and say, what's the point of homework? Um, are we making sure that what we send home is necessary, which I believe that it is, but can we look even deeper into that? Can we make sure that we're making it the least amount of work possible? Because we do want you to be able to sit with your family and have great dinners and, read the Bible together and, watch a movie together in the evening, so on and so forth. But it's not just for Wednesday night. I would want to do that for any night. Because we should be sending home work that is necessary and beneficial for everybody. So it's a conversation we're having. It's one that we've had numerous times. I would love to have a good answer and say, absolutely, starting on August 1st of next year, we're chastising anybody that gives up homework on Wednesday. I don't think it's that easy, though. So we'll continue to have those conversations and see if we can come up with a plan that works for everybody. Are we planning to add more classes or grades for next school year? I think they mean just sections. So we've got all the grades, K to 12, preschool included. But as far as like sections of grades, yeah, we have 3 classes right now. The top, well, actually 4, but one of them in high school. 3 elementary level classes that are all over 100. So as those move through the elementary, we'll have to add sections. So for example, that second grade group or the first grade group going to second or second grade going to third, we will add sections for that because those students, unless they just decline enrollment, will continue with us. I will say we've moved, and I shared this with you even last year about this time, into a little more of a controlled growth. We did hit a huge spike of students for about a 2-year period. And we were just kind of, wow, oh my gosh, there's so many kids, ed choice, so on and so forth. That's slowed down quite a bit. So our applications are still similar, but we've taken a good, strong look at the space that we have, making sure that our culture is not changing on a dramatic basis. and really fitting the right people in the right space where we have needs. Example being, the class that we currently have in 6th grade is very, very big. To move them into 7th grade, we have some students that are outside that want to come into that class. We've had to put them on a wait list because honestly, that class is pretty big. And if we don't add a few more teachers, we would be overtaxing the teachers that we have. So with new students to a certain level, we can fill in empty seats. When we get to a level that there are no more empty seats and we have to talk about adding another section, then there's cost associated with that. We have rooms to put them in. We got to buy the desk. We got to make sure that the teacher's getting paid, so on and so forth. So that's why we're probably approaching more of that controlled growth mentality. What I've set the budget for, again, try to be transparent with you, is probably 25 to 30 kids additional. We actually set it for 25, but could it be realistic that we get 25 new kids that we don't have this year? Yeah, it is. Are we going to see another 100 kids added? No. Because honestly, at this point, you know about Ed Choice, and if you want to be here, you're probably here already. So we'll see a much more gradual growth as we start to work towards, 1,400, we'll say, because right now we're at 1,350. So as we continue to move up, we'll do that in a growth measure. Real quick, shout out to preschool though. Our preschool people are clamoring to get into preschool. I mean, we have 156 openings, and if there were MMA fights to get one, I think they'd have them. But it's been great because Wendy Tesmer and her team does a phenomenal job. If you've ever had your child go through our preschool, you know that I'm speaking truth. And she just does great. So preschool is just hitting out of the ballpark, and they are just trying to get in by the droves. We've had to make wait lists there. We're even talking about adding sections in preschool even. So in general, yes, we're trying to, just get better in general. Says meeting about the 8th graders going to discuss the portfolios. So yeah, that's with Renetta. Renetta Hendricks will meet with our 8th graders going into 9th grade to talk about pathways. She may even have other people involved in that, in those conversations. Parents, it says, are parents invited? Honestly, that's a good question. I don't know that I've thought that far ahead. I believe they could be. And obviously we want them to be a part of the decision-making process. Is that we send information home and the child shares it with them? We know sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Could they be invited on campus to have that conversation? Honestly, I don't see why not. We want to partner with you and, make that a part of the conversation. Sounds good. Okay. I love that their plans are really good. Yeah, it just says that, yes, it says, love the gifted. What about struggling students? Actually, struggling students are going to get the first attention. That's that RTI process that we talked about at the beginning. As we looked at those 4 steps, strengthening intervention comes before enrichment. We want to make sure everybody's getting the right information, and those that aren't, we can bring them up to the standard. Yeah, education pathway. It's so I did what's called a teacher academy in my school district that I came from. We ran it for a couple of years, and then I stepped over here. We had about 5 students go 1 year for the other. It takes a similar path as our healthcare pathway. It basically introduces students to a certain sect of education to be a teacher. We usually have 2 or 3 teachers that teach them how to be teachers, if you will. So it's everything from classroom management to FERPA laws. There's always going to be some sort of legal aspect, school law aspect to it. We talk about how to set lesson plans. We'll do internships and apprenticeships through our school itself, and probably send out to other schools as well. The person was asking, is there a timeline? If you use a basic timeline of a pathway a year, that would be my hope. I can't guarantee that because, again, there's costs that are associated with this, and I don't want to run wild on costs without making sure that people have a desire to go into these pathways. We know healthcare is going to be solid, probably business. Maybe teaching or business first, we'll kind of make that decision. So I could say in the best case scenario, you could see a teacher pathway as early as 27, 28, maybe 28, 29. And that's, again, data, depending on what maybe the cost is for one or the other. If adding a business pathway is only at X amount of cost, maybe that we tackle that first, and maybe the teacher pathway, which actually I think would be cheaper if I were to just think off the top of my head, maybe we end up doing that one first. But unfortunately, I have a perfect timeline for you. Oh my gosh, I would love this. So are there any plans to create a military J or OTC component for students interested in military pathway? I'm in, except there's a ton of rules around that. So it's been a few years since I looked to it in my old school district, and that was a public school district. So there's probably something a little different. It's a little more expensive than you would think. You have to have a certain teacher, and they have to have certain credentialing. At least that's the research that I did a few years back. But I don't think anybody would see it as a surprise. I'm a huge military supporter. So, having a son that served in the Army, having grandparents, both my grandfathers served in World War II. One walked around with a limp the rest of his life due to an injury. I won't detail it, but just an injury, and had a limp the rest of his life serving his country. So all about it. I'm supportive of it. I would need to do a little research to see what that would be, what it would cost, what aspects of this are we allowed to have here, and I would hope all of them, but honestly, I don't know that information off the top of your head. Whoever sent that in, if you could send me an email, that would be awesome, just so maybe we can trade some conversations. I'm interested, but let's see what the details come out on that. So mbaker at DaytonChristian.com. Yeah, again, great ideas. Like I love that you guys are sending this in. A fine arts pathway, 100% in. What does that look like? So how do we help students? And we have some amazingly talented students. In fact, I'm going to kind of move over here to the side so you can see in my office, I actually have student displayed work, and I just think it's amazing what our kids can do, from creating 3D printed objects. I've got a robotics team up there who does a great job. The artwork, I've got it. Hold on. This is actually my dog. Now, it's not really my dog, but my dog looks just like this. So luckily, the young lady allowed me to bring it into my office and get to look at it here for the next couple of weeks. But this is the kind of amazing stuff, and so much more that our kids do. Again, great idea. Love that idea. What does that look like? And I don't say that flippantly. I mean, like, what can we do? I know that we have a connection to the Dayton art school that's just up the road. Somebody that's connected to DC, knows the owner. So I mean, like, we can have those conversations. I love that idea. Help me figure out what that looks like. Do we have some pieces in place now? And possibly we do. If our art department, it's A+. It's phenomenal. So that we have skills when it comes to instruction. Now, how do we turn those maybe into career pathways? So great idea. Love it. Send me an email if you can, and let's talk that out. I'll leave this. I got one more. Something I've been toying around with, so don't hold me to this, but parent advisory council. It's something that I did in my old place. Again, keep on mentioning that, sorry. But I think there is value there. Here's my hesitation. I'm a very positive person. If you've been around me, hopefully you've noticed, maybe you've been at a game or two. I like to spread excitement. I like to spread happiness. Sometimes those conversations, I don't mind criticism. Don't get me wrong. I've got a tough skin, but doing this superintendent thing for 10 years, that stuff really doesn't bother me. I believe that God has placed me here for such a time as this. There's going to be parents that disagree with decisions that I make. Absolutely. That's their right to do that. If they want to share that opinion with me and can do it in a Christ-like manner, absolutely. I'll listen to it all day long. Sometimes those aren't the conversations we have, though, and they turn into something a little more negative. So that's my trepidation. Even when we send out, I bet you wouldn't be surprised at this, even when we send out survey data, the stuff we get back all the time isn't super, super nice. And out of our Christian, colleagues, I'm a little surprised at some of the things that are said back to us. So a parent advisory council is something I want but I've got to continue to pray about it, and I've been praying about it for a little while to make sure that people that are on that council are approaching it in the right way. And that is, how are we going to help our students the best we can and keep a positive attitude while we're doing it, and not see it as an opportunity just to kind of throw darts, if you know what I mean. All right, last one, because I'm over time. Sorry. We're gonna, regarding the pathway healthcare, will priority be given to upperclassmen? Yes. Yes, they will. Talked to Tanya last night, actually, and she was emailing people this morning and all this stuff. Yeah, upperclassmen will absolutely have priority. There will be room for freshmen to start in medical terminology or careers in the healthcare pathway, or health fields, I believe, health careers. Sorry, but if we have 20 seniors or 20 juniors that went in there, yes, we're going to make sure they get in there. All right, great. You stuck with me. Thank you so much. I'm going to go eat some dinner. I hope you have either done that already or are going to do the same thing. I appreciate your time. Have a fantastic rest of the day. And as always, go Warriors.